Hey everybody, Scott Welly. Welcome back to Passion to Published. All right, this module we are talking about getting started in creating your book with the book first option. And I've got 5 key strategies that I want to go over that are going to get you going on the right foot, get you started, and get you off on the right track. So the first strategy is to look for things that you've already created. And we don't need to make this more difficult than it needs to be. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. And a lot of times I found that people have things already created that they've just simply overlooked, or they don't even think could serve as a potential framework or a potential building block for their book. And I look at, all of my books, but certainly I look at Outperform the Norm, and probably 50 to 60% of that initial book came from blog posts I'd already written. And if you don't do blogging, that's fine, but think of maybe social media posts or articles or journals or diaries or even just simple notes and resources and documents that you have created. A lot of people have these things, and I would compel you to go back and to look through some of your resources and documents, because you can probably use those as ideas or as initial building blocks in which to build your book. And then the second part of it is to just get started. I'm a huge believer in momentum, and whether you're talking about making a behavioral change or talking about getting going on a project, the hardest thing is to just get started. It really is. And then once you're started, you can embrace that momentum, and an object that's in motion stays in motion. And really, that's how you have to look at your book. So I'm going to bring up just the best-selling framework here. So hopefully you've downloaded this, you've done some research, you've worked your way through it. But if you go all the way down to your chapter structure here, I'm certain that when you look at this and you look at some of the subchapters and points and stories that you're looking at using in your chapters, that some of them jump out at you as just easier or just more comfortable to you. And that's pretty typical for everybody. For whatever reason, it's just more top of mind and it just comes easier to you. And assuming that you're not writing a book that necessarily has to be told in perfect chronological order, like I think of storytelling books and fictional books and things like that, which truthfully, if you're writing that type of book, you're probably not investing in this course. But you just want to get started with whatever chapter or whatever part of your book looks easiest to you, because it's going to help you with that momentum and it's going to help get you going. And even if you go to the last page here where you've got kind of a general outline and an overview of some of the components that may go into your book, it could even be something like if you know what you want to use for your introduction or your conclusion, or maybe you just want to put your about the author part out there, just get some part of your book going. Because when you do that, it's going to establish that initial momentum. And I'm telling you, once you feel like you're started, it's just easier to keep it going from there. The third part of it is don't overthink. And I was hugely guilty of paralysis by analysis and feeling like the first draft of my book had to be perfect. And thankfully, no one else is really reading the first draft of your book. And the idea is to just get your thoughts out on paper. Again, to come back to just getting started and getting some momentum going. That's exactly how you want to think of your first draft. Don't worry about how good it is. Just get something down on paper and just get going. And the other part is to not sweat the length of it. Books don't have to be a certain length. And I was guilty of this too, where I thought every chapter, every subchapter had to be a certain page length, and it doesn't. When you tell people that you're a best-selling author, they don't say, well, how many pages is your book? They're just impressed that you're a best-selling author and you have a finished product. So when you're writing your first draft, don't worry about how long your chapters are. You can always add or subtract or edit throughout the course of the process, but don't worry and don't feel like it has to be a certain length. Fourth part, and this may be the most essential component of all the 5 strategies, is to turn everything off. And this goes for certainly TV and the radio, but your phone, internet, social media, everything. Try to remove as many distractions as possible. This is a nice typo. It should say every time you're interrupted, it will take you away from what you're trying to accomplish, but that's the truth. And focus and discipline are learned skills, and they can get better over time. And I would much rather have, let's say, half an hour to 45 minutes of highly focused, highly disciplined, productive time than 90 minutes of time where your Facebook is being updated or you're getting text messages coming through or emails or whatever else it might be. This is very difficult for a lot of people, but I'm telling you, it gets better with time. And if you practice it, you will be amazed at the amount you are able to accomplish in a very short period of time. And the last part is to focus on quality over quantity. I'm usually a bigger fan of saying, I am going to write this subchapter tonight, or I'm going to write this chapter this week, instead of saying that I'm going to set aside 2 hours to write tonight. Just simply because if you do it in terms of time frames and durations, well, if that 2 hours, to come back to what I said before, is unfocused, undisciplined time where you're being distracted and interrupted a lot, well, you can feel like you did well because you set aside 2 hours, but how much did you really accomplish? So focusing on getting specific parts of your book written and getting it done is going to make you buckle down, is going to make you focus. So really work on this. It's a big deal. And then the last part of it is to move around periodically. I use these slides, these pictures a lot in my presentations. The one on the left here, this is from the University of Northern Illinois and brain scans. And you know that my background is in health and human performance and physiology. But the one on the left here is a brain at rest, or someone that's been sitting down. The one on the right is a brain of somebody that's been walking around for 20 minutes. And I usually tell people when the body turns off, the brain turns off, and it's the truth. And sometimes if you get in a point where you're just staring at your computer and for whatever reason, the neurons aren't firing, you just have writer's block, you're just not being as productive as you should be, one of the worst things you can actually do at that time is to just sit there and just try and plow through it. Because chances are you're this brain on the left where it's just turned off. Your body's turned off, your brain is turned off. So get up, walk around a little bit. You don't have to go take a boot camp class, although exercise is good. Just take your dog out or go get some fresh air and just move around a little bit. And just a few minutes will make you look more like this brain on the right. It will get those neurons firing. And when you sit back down, you will be that much more productive when you actually do. So it's just a key strategy for overall productivity. And, don't get stuck in the just sitting down and trying to plow through it, because trust me, I've played that game too. So above and beyond this, as far as creating your book, most people, I think, will write their book in Microsoft Word. It just seems to be the universal kind of platform that people will use. Certainly, if you do just Mac stuff, you can write it in Pages. I'm not sure if you can even upload Pages to Amazon, but that's down the road anyway. We would just convert it to a PDF and then upload it that way. But regardless of whether it's Microsoft Word or Pages on Mac, either one of those will work, but the idea is to just get started, just get going, get some things down, and once you do that, you're going to feel better about yourself, and you're going to be off and running on the right foot. So I will catch up with you in the next module. Have a great day.